Hey guys, it is MS Awareness Month and today is Workout Wednesday. So happy to have you back. And today we have our very first guest with us, Mr. Chris Sanchez.
Thank you.
I invited him to join us today to talk about the importance of the core and core strength and how it plays into our overall health. As we know, throughout this month, we've been talking all about how to best manage MS and autoimmune disease through diet and lifestyle. We talked a little bit about the foods that we're eating, the importance of sleep and exercise, but I really wanted to dive deeper into the core. So Chris, being a personal trainer, knowing so much about the body and its movement, can you kick us off by helping us to understand exactly what the core is?
Yes, so I feel like there's a common misconception when people think and talk about the core. So, a lot of first timers or kind of newbies to the gym will think that the core strictly consists of, your six-pack muscle and maybe the obliques, but there's really so much more to it. The core encompasses your body in a 360-degree fashion. So you got your front, the sides of your body, the back of your body. I always explain it to clients where if you were to draw a line from the bottom of your sternum to the midpoint of your thigh, everything in between those two lines, from the front, sides, the back, that's all your core. So you have your rectus abdominis, your obliques, your lats, and everything underneath of those two. So the muscles that people don't know about, like your multifidus and your quadratus lumborum, and the things that sound like wizard spells, but they're actually muscles, those are involved with it too. So there's a lot going on, in the core. It's not just your six-pack muscle or the muscles that everyone likes to see in the mirror.
That makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of times we think of core, we think just like flat tummy and six-pack, as you said, but there's a lot more that's involved to it. So one of the things that can be a challenge with MS is balance. So knowing that the core plays such an important role in the body overall, can you help us understand how that may allow us to have better balance as we move throughout our day?
Yeah, definitely. So the core's purpose in the body is to resist movement. So resist extension or bending backwards, resist bending sideways or rotating. So it really keeps everything from your pelvis to your low back nice and stable. And when your pelvis is nice and stable, things like walking or lunging or squatting become that much more effective because you're able to control it. So if you have no control over your pelvis and it's dipping and turning and twisting, when you go to walk or step or do a lunge or do a squat, it's going to be very unstable and you're going to be more likely to lose your balance or to just have it go awry. So you want to make sure that it's nice and strong to provide yourself a nice stable base to work from. So like a simple way to think about it is if your body is composed of 3 blocks. Your lower body is 1 block, then you have your core on top, and then your upper body on top of that. Well, if those are 3 solid blocks, it's nice and stable. Moving those blocks won't be a problem. But if you take that second block and remove it and replace it with a spring, well, now the lower block and then the upper block are going to have a really tough time balancing, and if you try to move it, it's going to be very unstable and it's going to fall over or whatnot. So a weak core basically just means you're going to be that much more unstable. Balance is going to be an issue for you in the long run. So strengthening it and make sure that it's where it needs to be is just going to make life easier and more enjoyable.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Can you help us understand a few exercises then that we can help to strengthen our core so we don't have that spring in the center there? We want a nice rock solid core.
I think we could do that.
Fantastic. Let's get to it then.
Awesome.
Okay, so we are back and ready to get started on some exercises here. So being that the personal trainer that you are, help guide me through some exercises to tighten up the core here.
Absolutely. So the first thing we're going to do is what's called a bird dog. So it has the client or whoever's participating in the exercise down on their hands and knees. And this is what we would call an anti-extension exercise. So that basically means is we're trying to monitor the low back here. So we don't want it to sink to the floor. We don't want it to round over. We basically want no movement in the low back whatsoever. And then the extremities, the arms and the legs are going to do all the moving during this exercise. So what I'll have clients do is I'll cue them first off to brace their stomach nice and tight. It might be, kind of violent, but I'll say, imagine like I'm going to come underneath and smack you in the gut, and you don't want it to hurt. So an easy way to do that is just to exhale through your mouth until you feel your stomach brace. And then once you do that, you're going to take an opposite arm and an opposite leg, and you're just going to reach out And the goal for this one is to really have no movement in the hips as you go. So Aline, you can just keep going, but alternate as you go. So I'll tell people, imagine like you have a glass of water right on top of your low back and you don't want it to spill. So stomach is staying tight the entire time. And one of the more common mistakes you'll see with this is people will tend to arch their back. So Eileen, I'm gonna have you do a bad rep where you get this big curve in the low back. We don't want that. So brace that stomach, keep it nice and tight. And when you kick back, you wanna think about getting long and trying to touch the walls behind you and in front of you. So when you reach up, that's when you're gonna round that low back, and we don't want that. So there's no movement in the low back. You're getting a good squeeze on your butt on the back leg. And if you really wanna make this awesome and have your form be spectacular, exhale at the end of every rep. So you go, you squeeze, then full exhale, you'll feel your stomach really, really get tight. And Aline's doing a pretty bang up job on these. So that's a bird dog.
Sweet.
Yeah, so the next one that we'll do is going to be what's called a dead bug. I don't really know where the name comes from. I've debated with clients as to it's because you look like a dead bug when you're doing so. So we'll start with the more basic version and then kind of, up the ante a little bit as we keep going. So first and foremost, what you want to do is arms are going to go straight up towards the ceiling. Bring your feet up off the ground. Knees are going to be bent at 90 degrees. So the most important aspect of this exercise is to keep your low back flat to the floor. So I'll tell clients, if I can slide my hand underneath your low back, that's a problem. So a cue I'll use is push your belly button down into the floor and squash that space. So your stomach's gonna be really tight. You're pushing your low back down into the floor. And then from there, nice and controlled, you're gonna extend one leg out nice and straight, keeping that space squashed. Then you bring that leg back in, and then you do the same thing on the opposite side. So really, if you kick your leg out and you feel your back arch off the ground, that's usually a good indication that you really don't have the core strength and stability that you need. So your spine is arching, kind of like how we did on the dead bug, but just on your back now. So we need to strengthen this guy up to keep it squashed so that your extremities can move on their own. So if you need to make this one harder, what you can do is incorporate the opposite side arm as you drop your leg down. So Eileen's gonna move her left leg and her right arm going down. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it even harder for your low back to stay flat to the floor. So again, if you feel your low back arch off the ground once you drop, don't go as far. So shorten your range of motion and really focus on keeping that space squashed the entire time. Now, if you need to make it even harder, what you can do is straighten out your legs. And basically what this does is it creates a longer lever for you to work with, and you do the exact same thing. So you'll notice once your legs are straight, it's gonna feel a lot more challenging, but again, the same thing. Keep that space squashed between your low back and the ground, keep the stomach tight, and go from there. So if you find yourself struggling, you can relax. If you find yourself struggling to keep your low back flat to the ground, one thing I'll do, stay there. One thing I'll have clients do is put their arms straight up, and then same thing with the legs. So we'll go knees bent on this one. So I have them put their hands together, and then I'll just push back, and I'll say, don't let me move your hands. And what this is gonna do is Eileen's gonna have to actively push into my hands, which is gonna kind of reflexively turn on her abs automatically. So her low back's gonna stay flat, kind of without her even doing so. And then from there, straighten out an arm, or just straighten out a leg, and then do the same thing on the opposite side. So if you don't have like a trainer or a partner, you can just hold on to a band that's tied to something, or you can press into a wall behind you. All of those are options that'll work just as well. So that's the dead bug.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
What's next?
The next one that we're going to do is going to be a side plank. So Eileen, roll over onto your side. So I'll tell people when they do a side plank, just think good posture. So you want a straight line from the top of your head all the way down to your heels. And as long as you can maintain that body position throughout, you're gonna be golden. So Eileen picks her hips up, and shoulders are nice and straight, hips are straight, body's nice and straight. Keep your stomach braced. One of the things you'll see on the side plank when people aren't strong enough to do this is that their top shoulder will actually turn forward, and that's the body's way of trying to make it easier. So I'll tell people, imagine like you're pressed up against a wall, and you need to keep both shoulder blades pressed up against it, your butt, your heels, and the back of your head. So if this is too hard, what you can do is drop down to the floor, bend your bottom knee, and then do the exact same thing. So now it's just a shorter lever to work with. So you're down on your elbow and your knee, same exact thing. Shoulders are turned back. Don't let your hips turn or twist forward. And what I'll have do usually during a warm up or to get people to really feel it where they need to is I'll have people inhale through their nose and then exhale like they're trying to blow out a candle that's about 5 feet away. And I'll say exhale until you have literally nothing left in your stomach, like to the point where you're almost shaking. And you're gonna feel your abs and your obliques really, really turn on, and it's gonna make it 10 times harder.
You can feel a difference with that.
Yes, so that's the side plank. And then last but not least, we are going to go shoulder taps. So Ellie is gonna get into a push-up position or a high plank position. And what we're gonna have her do on this one is first and foremost assume a good push-up position, straight line from head all the way to her heels. I'm gonna tell her to squeeze your butt, squeeze her stomach, because remember all that tension at the hips and low back is gonna keep everything nice and stable. And then in one controlled manner, she's gonna take her opposite hand, tap her opposite shoulder, do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And then same cue as the bird dog. Right now, Eileen's got a glass of water on top of her low back and butt, and she doesn't want to spill. So she's trying to keep her hips as stable as possible. Don't let them dip towards the floor. Don't let them twist or turn. If this is too hard, there's a couple things you can do. Number one, from push-up position, you can spread out your feet a little bit more. It's gonna be a wider base of support, give you a little more stability starting off. So same thing, squeeze your butt, squeeze your stomach, no movement in the hips. If that's still too hard, what you can do is you can drop down to your knees and do the exact same thing. Now, one of the things you're gonna see on this one is a lot of people will shoot their butt backwards and they're kind of bent at like 90 degrees. We don't want that. So right now, that's all hip flexors and it's not really doing what we want it to do. So you want a straight line from shoulder all the way down to knees, and same cues. You're gonna squeeze your butt, you're gonna squeeze your stomach, tap the opposite shoulder, and I'll usually tell people, try to be as quiet as possible. You don't want to tap your shoulder and then quick put your hand back down to the ground to kind of catch yourself if you're falling. So you want it to be nice and slow and controlled, resist that movement, and usually you go 5 to 10 on each side depending on where you're starting with or what your abilities are.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. I
Nice
can definitely feel it. Yay! Thanks so much for your help.
No problem.
Hope this was helpful for you guys. These are some exercises that you can certainly do from the comfort of your home. Chris Sanchez is also on social media, so you can check his pages out. He's got a lot of good information there. And of course, I hope you continue to follow along. And if you know anybody who has MS or another autoimmune, please tag them in this video so that they can get some great information to help them on their healing journey. Thanks so much, guys, and see you later. Bye.